cold open. There are loaves that sit heavy on your chest after lunch and make your afternoon a blur. And then there's a slice of sourdough that lifts you, lighter, tangy, steady. I remember biting into a flatbread warm from a skillet and thinking, my energy didn't crater. Let's explore why that happens, and yes, make a simple discard sourdough flatbread you can try today.
Welcome back to Earthy Remedy, where we translate plant wisdom into everyday kitchen skills. I'm Fiona, and with Samnong today, we'll break down what fermentation does to starch, who should be cautious, and guide you through a single-serve demo plus a 2-week microtrial you can try at home.
And I'm Samnong. Quick safety note up front. This episode is meant for food-first learning. If you're on insulin or other glucose-lowering medications, do not change your dose or timing based on what you try here without talking to your clinician first. We'll repeat that at the end so it's crystal clear. Today, we've got 3 guests. Lena Morales, an artisan sourdough baker who teaches classes and keeps things practical, Dr. Amir Khan, who studies glycemic responses and personalization, and Rachel Nguyen, a clinical dietitian who helps people translate kitchen experiments into safe, everyday habits. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Samnang. Hi, Fiona. So good to be here. I'm excited to get people mixing and feeling confident with a small, no-fuss flatbread. Thanks for having me. I'll keep the science simple but useful. What we can reasonably expect from fermentation in the kitchen, not clinical miracles. Happy to be here. I'll help listeners know who should pause and how to share what they find with their provider without causing unnecessary worry.
Let's start with the core question. Dr. Amir, in everyday terms, what actually happens to starch during sourdough fermentation, and how does that change digestion and blood sugar response?
Great question. At a basic level, wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria in a sourdough starter feed on the flour's sugars and produce acids and enzymes. Those acids, particularly lactic acid, change the pH and can alter the structure of starches and proteins. Some starch becomes more resistant to quick digestion, and the acidity slows gastric emptying a bit. The net effect is often a slower, more gradual rise in post-meal glucose for many people and increased satiety.
So it's not magic. It's chemistry and time. That slow ferment tang we love also changes how the body meets that bread.
Exactly. Important nuance. The degree of effect depends on factors like fermentation time, acidity, flour type, and portion size. A long, highly acidic sourdough with whole grains looks different metabolically than a quick discard pancake made with white flour. Most studies show modest differences at culinary serving sizes, meaning this can help reduce spikes for some people, but it's not a guaranteed fix for everyone.
From a nutrient perspective, does grain type and whole grain versus refined flour matter here too?
Yes, whole grain flours contain fiber, intact cell walls, and other compounds that already slow digestion. Fermentation can add an extra layer of benefit by modifying starches and increasing acidity. So a whole grain sourdough often performs better than a refined version. But again, portion and what you eat with the bread matter a lot for real-world blood sugar outcomes. Practically speaking, in the kitchen, you'll see a dough that smells pleasantly tangy and a crumb that's slightly more open. When you cook a thin flatbread, it's the texture and the pairing that create that steady feeling. So we'll talk about pairings too.
Segment 2. Rachel, who should be cautious and why? Give us the red flags and some plain language phrases listeners can use with their clinicians.
First, if you have celiac disease or diagnosed gluten-related disorders, most wheat sourdoughs still contain gluten and are not safe. Avoid homemade wheat sourdough unless you're working with certified gluten-free flours. Second, people with type 1 diabetes or anyone who doses insulin should not change insulin timing or dose based on home experiments without clinician input. Small changes in carbohydrate quality can alter glucose and insulin needs. Third, people with severe immunocompromise should avoid raw ferment experiments and be careful about long room temperature starters. Those are the main red flags. If you plan to try a 2-week microtrial and you see different glucose readings, a simple clinician-friendly phrase is, I noticed different post-meal glucose patterns when I ate a sourdough flatbread for 2 weeks. Can we review my logs together before I change any meds? That opens collaboration instead of unilateral changes.
That's helpful. Direct language that keeps the clinician in the loop. We'll include a printable clinician phrasing card in the show notes.
Bridge Prep Checklist. Quick tools and ingredients for our single-serve discard flatbread. We'll read everything slowly so listeners can gather before the demo. You'll need 1 small bowl, a spoon, a teaspoon, a small non-stick or cast iron skillet, a spatula, and a clean surface or cutting board. Ingredients: 2 tablespoons of active sourdough discard or fed starter, 3 tablespoons of all-purpose or 50-50 all-purpose plus whole wheat flour, a pinch of fine salt, about 1/8 teaspoon, roughly 1 to 2 tablespoons of water, added slowly so you get a thick, spreadable batter, 1 teaspoon of olive oil for the skillet, optional seasonings, herbs, garlic powder, or a pinch of za'atar.
A note on the discard. If you've been feeding your starter, use a discard that smells mildly tangy and not off. If it's mushy with fuzzy mold or smells rotten, don't use it. Discard it in the bin and start fresh. For our flatbread, active discard is perfect because it adds lift and flavor without needing a long proof.
Segment 3. Demo. We'll walk step by step. Follow along and pause the episode if you need to gather tools. Read slowly through each step.
Step 1. In your small bowl, add 2 tablespoons of sourdough discard. That's about the size of a rounded tablespoon twice. Add 3 tablespoons of flour. If you prefer extra fiber, make it 1 tablespoon whole wheat and 2 tablespoons all-purpose.
Step 2. Add a pinch of salt, just a small pinch. Then begin adding water, 1 teaspoon at a time. You want a thick pancake batter consistency, spoonable but spreadable. If it feels too thin, add a little more flour. If it's too stiff, a drop more water. This is forgiving.
Step 3. Heat your skillet over medium heat and add 1 teaspoon of olive oil. You want the skillet hot but not smoking. Test by flicking a drop of water. It should sizzle and evaporate quickly.
Step 4. Spoon the batter into the skillet and spread into a roughly 6 to 7 inch round with the back of the spoon. You'll see tiny bubbles form on the surface after about 1 to 2 minutes. That's the discard activating and steam forming. When the edges look set and the underside is golden, flip it. Cook the second side about 1 to 2 minutes until golden too.
Tip: if you want extra tang, let the mixed batter sit at room temperature for 15 to 30 minutes before cooking. You'll smell it brighten. But if you're short on time, cook it right away. Both ways taste great.
Common mistake: cooking over too high heat makes the outside burn before the inside cooks. Use medium. If your skillet runs hot, lower it a touch. Also, use a thin layer of oil to help with color and toasting.
Step 5. Portion guidance. This single flatbread is roughly 1 serving. If you pair it with 10 to 15 grams of protein and a serving of non-starchy vegetables, you'll slow digestion further and support steady energy.
For example, top the warm flatbread with 2 tablespoons of hummus, plus a handful of salad greens and a drizzle of olive oil, or fold it around a scrambled egg and roasted peppers. Those fats and proteins help blunt the post-meal glucose response and keep you full longer.
Sensory moment. If you have your flatbread in hand, feel its warmth. Smell the mild acidity and take a mindful bite. Notice fullness signals over the next hour. This is part of our laid-back experiment.
Storage. Let any leftover flatbreads cool completely, then stack with parchment between pieces and refrigerate in an airtight container for up to 3 days. Reheat gently in a skillet or oven. For longer storage, freeze flat. Thaw and reheat.
Segment 4. Pairings and batching. Small strategies to lower glycemic impact. Rachel, what are reliable pairings or meal templates to use when you eat this bread?
Aim for a plate that includes a palm-sized portion of protein, eggs, bean spread, smoked salad, a fist of non-starchy vegetables or salad, and a thumb of healthy fat, olive oil, avocado, nuts.
That pattern helps moderate glucose and gives sustaining energy. Batch idea: make 4 flatbreads, refrigerate, and use 1 per day as part of a balanced meal.
Segment 5, the 2-week microtrial. We'll give a simple template listeners can follow to notice changes in energy and hunger without medical overreach.
Microtrial rules. Replace 1 typical bread serving with our sourdough flatbread for 2 weeks, keeping other meals and activity the same as much as possible. Log 3 things daily. 1. Post-meal energy on a 1 to 10 scale 2 hours after eating. 2. Time until you feel hungry again in minutes.
Optional for people who already monitor glucose with a fingerstick or continuous monitor, check 1 post-meal glucose reading at about 60 minutes and another at 120 minutes after the meal on a few test days. Record these alongside your subjective energy score, but only do this if you're already familiar with your device and your clinician has advised this approach. If you have diabetes or take meds that affect glucose, do not attempt fingerstick testing to adjust meds on your own. Log results and use this clinician phrasing. I completed a 2-week trial eating a sourdough flatbread once a day. Here are my logs. Can we review whether any medication adjustments are needed? That keeps the conversation collaborative.
How to interpret results. If you notice noticeably steadier energy and later hunger, that's a meaningful outcome for many people. If you see large glucose swings or unexpected symptoms, pause and contact your clinician.
Segment 6, sourcing, accessibility, and low-gluten swaps. Lena, where do you suggest listeners find reliable starters or store-bought alternatives?
If you're new to starters, local bakeries or community bake groups sometimes share small jars of active starter. Online marketplaces and reputable sourdough starter sellers are another option. Look for recent reviews. If you want an immediate swap, use a store-bought, long-fermented sourdough loaf labeled as such, or look for bread from bakeries that list slow fermentation. For gluten-free folks, use certified gluten-free flours and a gluten-free starter. Not all sourdough is safe.
Quick, low-effort practices for accessibility. Use discard so you're not wasting flour. Make 1 flatbread at a time so it's budget-friendly. And keep a few simple seasoning options to vary flavors.
A note on food safety and starters. If your starter develops fuzzy mold, a pink or orange tint, or a rotten smell, throw it out. Keep starters refrigerated if you're not baking often. Feed them regularly if you keep them at room temperature, and always use clean utensils.
And for immunocompromised listeners, avoid handling raw fermented doughs at room temperature for long periods. Choose store-bought, long-fermented options from reputable bakers instead, and speak with your clinician if you're unsure.
Outro, reflection, and encouragement. This is a small, food-first experiment that gives you tools in the kitchen and data about your own body. Start small, notice honestly, and share what you learn.
Resources. We've put the full flatbread recipe, storage tips, a printable 2-week microtrial tracker, and a clinician phrasing cheat sheet in the show notes. If you plan to monitor glucose, bring your logs to your clinician before changing any medications.
Final safety reminder from all of us. Do not change or adjust insulin or other glucose-lowering medications based on this episode or your own microtrial without talking to your healthcare provider first. If you're unsure about celiac or severe immune issues, check with a clinician before trying homemade ferments.
We'd love to see your flatbreads. Tag us and show how you paired them. Baking is better shared. If you try the optional glucose checks, consider sharing aggregated, de-identified findings with your clinician. It's the data that makes changes safe and useful.
Remember, if anything feels off or you get unexpected readings or symptoms, pause the trial and contact your clinician. Safety first, curiosity second.
Thanks to Lena, Amir, and Rachel. This was practical, grounded, and delicious. Listeners, try the flatbread this week. Follow the 2-week microtrial if it's appropriate for you. And remember, one small step can change how you feel after a meal.
We'll close with our signature reminder. Listen to your body. Trust the earth. Feel the difference. Follow Earthy Remedy on socials for the printable tracker and to tag your photos or short voice notes. All the links are in the show notes.
See you next episode. Keep it simple, nourishing, and curious. You've got this.